Welcome back to the Watch Before You Die podcast. My name is Brian. I'm here with Ben. And this episode, we have watched the 1989 movie Field of Dreams, starring Kevin Costner. So
let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So this is a movie that came out the year after I was born. And
the year before I was born. So that gives you our ages.
And it's all about baseball. And I think just after watching the movie, something that really stands out to me is, if some of these old baseball player names meant more to me, I think I might have gotten more out of the movie.
Okay.
Occasionally. Yeah. Obviously, I knew Shoeless Joe and some of the other baseball players that were mentioned, but there were a lot that went right over my head, I'm sure. So I'm sure I missed out on some of the Easter eggs. But yeah, it was a pretty good movie. It was a feel-good movie, kind of.
It was.
And
to a degree.
Yeah, I think I enjoyed my watch. How about you? What did you think of the movie?
It was interesting because this is a film that definitely gets its plaudits and people talk a lot about it, and people, it's kind of I don't know that it's a cult classic, but it is a widely revered movie.
Oh yeah.
And I think we talked about when we rolled for the episode that neither of us had potentially seen it, or we had maybe seen it but didn't remember it at all. And when I started watching it, I definitely had this flashback of I've seen this movie.
I had not.
But
yeah,
I didn't know anything that was coming because I must have watched it as a kid, or must have watched it in the early developments of my middle school, teenage years. And I just nothing was coming for I had no concept of what was next.
Right.
And then I'm sitting there just going what is this movie? And where are we going with this movie? But I did find it really fascinating. A few things I enjoyed about it. I loved the setting. It did feel a bit and I know the movie's obviously not set in a time frame where I would have been alive, but it's set close enough to when I was alive that it felt a bit nostalgic for me. It felt a bit like being a kid again. It felt a bit like a world that we would have grown up in. Because I do feel like there is this great split for our generation, which is we lived before the internet.
Right.
And then we lived after the internet.
Right.
So movies that happened within a time period of the before the internet feel very nostalgic for my childhood. And I'm I could have lived in that, especially also because I grew up in Kansas and so did you. And so it's the fields, the corn, the house, everything feels like I could have lived it at some point in my life.
It's also an interesting slice of time that existed where, technology had advanced so far that you could drive a car across the country. You could go, from Iowa to the East Coast to Minnesota. You could travel around, but they didn't have cell phones. They didn't have ways to check in. And so people would go missing. And it's just because they haven't contacted anyone for a few days and they're missing. I remember growing up in that time, right? Where it was you can't just call people anytime. You can't just check in anytime. That's totally normal. A lot of these movies are so far old that it's of course nobody knows where you are. And then some of them are new enough that we constantly know where people are, or we're constantly keeping in touch. So in this movie, I felt that nostalgia too, in that when Kevin Costner is meeting these people, he's not giving his wife constant updates, and she's not giving him constant updates about the farm and what's going on at home while he's gone. So there's this disconnect where you're nowadays it almost feels like you couldn't do that unless they were purposely avoiding each other or missing each other.
Right.
So
you couldn't even fathom a world where Field of Dreams is even a film you could make now. I mean, it's not even a concept that could exist anymore. So
I did find it stuff.
Yeah, you absolutely would. And so I found it actually a really enjoyable watch. I enjoyed the setting. I also feel like it was a throwback to when movies were actually filmed on location. It's not a set. It's not this is filmed at a house in a field kind of a thing. It's filmed on the streets of wherever he traveled to. Yeah. It's and I know they still had sets for some of this stuff, but for the most part, it was a movie that you could live in.
Well,
I think that
even before I watched this movie, I've heard people talk about, we went to visit where Field of Dreams was shot, right? Like that's a place that you can go. That's a tourist attraction. And I think even to this day, you can still go and see that. And so like, yeah, it was heavily lauded as like a great movie. And like you said, it wasn't just a set. It was like they made a baseball field in Iowa and people go to it. So it's a real place.
Yeah. And there's something about that to me recently with movies that was very, very attractive to me in watching the film. I don't know if it's just I've become a little bit oversaturated by like movies that are purely green screen or just oversaturated by the fact that you don't see a lot of films like this anymore, or maybe I just don't watch a lot of films like this anymore. But it was very attractive to me as I watched the film, and I've punched my mic like 6 times. I know
I hit mine too already.
The hands are moving.
To our listeners, we're sorry if the audio is like we're just getting really amped up.
we're amped about Field of Dreams. We're amped about baseball. And what I will say on the flip side, maybe what I couldn't appreciate, didn't enjoy, you've alluded to a little bit, is like I'm just not a baseball guy. I don't like baseball really. I didn't play baseball growing up. Other than like, you know, at recess when you just get a ball and you hit it, and you know, like baseball's not my thing. So there are some things that certainly didn't mean anything to me, that I probably could have appreciated more if I was a baseball guy. But I think when it comes down to it, even though this is a very baseball central story, it has nothing to do with baseball at all. Like you could actually replace the concept of baseball with any sport or any activity or and it keep the storyline the same, which I did appreciate, because it's like the central theme and the driving point of the story is still there, no matter what the activity might be. Yeah,
I'm with you. Baseball is not my favorite sport. I grew up loving basketball. I love, soccer now. I love American football now. But baseball, I really enjoy in person. It's something that I like to attend a baseball game. That's a lot of fun. And I even roomed with like baseball players in college. Like I had baseball players around me. I know about the sport. I know how it's played and stuff. It just was never my like favorite thing. But like you said, to your credit, it could have been about anything that would, it's a farmer who has dug up his livelihood to do something that seems crazy to everybody, right? And so why has he done
Absolutely.
That? So you replace that with anything else, it could be anything else. Baseball is almost trivial, but it is the point of the movie, and it has nothing to do with the movie at the same time.
It's quite strange actually. You don't find films where like you could literally take a whole section of the movie out that seems the most important and it still not change the storyline.
A couple of things I wanted to mention about the movie that were kind of, I don't know, just I'll start with a pro. One of the things that I really liked the wife's acting in this. Like her lines were written really well. And
they were really,
I think at that time, probably everybody watched that movie and thought this is the most understanding wife of all time, because not only did she like kind of give crap back to Kevin Costner and like tease a little bit, but was also like fully understanding and supportive the whole way through. And like a lot of newer movies, I think would try to dig some drama into that. Like, there was the drama of like, we might have to sell the farm. What are we going to do? That kind of thing. And they tried to make it look like, oh, she's going to turn on him or something like that. But she was like stood strong the whole time. And I was like, I actually really liked her character, even though I was like, I didn't quite understand all of her dialogue. I thought it was like actually pretty well written. I thought she was pretty good.
I want to jump on that really quickly.
Please.
I agree, because I do think modern films would have taken that dynamic and created a rift in the relationship comparative to this because you get a little backstory, which is like them coming together and getting married was crazy. And they kind of build on that and being like there's this moment they're having where he's like, I need to cut down half the field to make a baseball field. And she's like, sounds crazy, but okay. Like it plays on the fact that like they started out with the crazy relationship getting married and they continue it. And there's no rift to be had there. It's a supportive marriage despite the other things.
Right.
And I enjoyed that. I thought like, wow, very refreshing. It's not a him versus her or even in modern, it's like she's going to take the kid while he tries to figure it out and then prove to her like this is what it's not that it eventually. Is right. It is we're going to stick together and we're going to do this crazy thing no matter really what comes of it. So I agree. Anyways, your next point.
some things that I didn't like about the movie, the things that, like, I don't know, they just kind of trip me up because sometimes I'm a continuity guy and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Some of the, like, who can and cannot enter the field and time travel stuff didn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
It didn't.
It was like, okay, so there's this old guy. He's been dead for 3 years. We're looking for him.
Obviously, spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers.
We're there.
Sorry about that. I told you that the wife was cool too, so I can spoil that.
It's all right. I think people would know this movie is going to be spoiled. So, anyways.
So the old guy, he's been dead for 3 years. He comes back to life, or he goes back in time. Kevin Costner does. And don't get me started with like walking up to a random license plate and like removing the one patch of dirt that has the year on it or whatever to find out what year it was. I was like, oh,
yeah.
Anyways, talks to him for a while, then goes back to his room in the present day. And then on the way back to their house, picks up a youth hitchhiker who is the old man as a kid. They bring him as a kid to the field. He starts playing in the game, leaves the game, turns into an old man and is not allowed to re-enter. Like, it's just like he was
dead.
He's
but
dead.
He also helped the girl. Yeah, no, I agree. That moment for me, like, I will say is in watching it, I was invested. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, watching it, I'm invested.
Yeah.
But if you dissect it as you just did, it is like, what are we doing here?
I didn't
Field of Dreams.
I didn't like it. It was like, I understand how cool that could have been. Like, I get what you're saying. It's like, it's an old man. He's a doctor. He knows how to save the girl. He's a kid. He's a youth baseball player. He never got his chance to wink at him and hit the, like, I get it. Like, man, what a great thing. You didn't quite tie that together for me. You didn't quite land that plane. I don't.
Valid. Yeah. I'll validate that. I'll validate it. That's fair. I think that's fair.
The other thing to me is, the end of the movie. That's the point that's supposed to make you feel good and feel happy. Like, you know that all these people are going to show up at their farm. They're going to watch the baseball game. They're not even going to question it. They're just going to start handing over money.
The end
of the movie.
Yeah.
It's a big, like, these days we would use a drone or a helicopter shot. I don't know what they used for it, but it was just a big shot of Iowa and the roads just lit up with
just
people.
A crane or something. Yeah.
And all these people are coming, but everybody just left. The game is over, and they have one small section of bleachers for no one to sit on. I was just like, they're coming at the middle of the night almost, and the game is over, and the guys are gone.
Yeah. I will say the ending for me, because I did expect something different, the ending did throw me off a little bit. I was a little off put by it because I'm like, I agree. Like, where are the stands?
Right.
Why are we coming in the middle of the night?
Right.
Why do I not get to see even like I'm so used to after credit shots. I knew there wasn't going to be one, but even you could have done like they used to do like montages through the credits.
Yeah, sure.
Where you could have done a montage of like credits. Then you see some people getting out of their cars and paying.
Right.
Credits. Then you see people walking up to the stage.
Sure.
Sometimes
Building
they used to do things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes they used to do things like that in movies. And I just thought like maybe I'm getting something, but I didn't. And I won't.
They were also kind of choosy with like who could and could not see the game. So I'm like, all these people are coming out because they feel something. Let's just hope that they can all see the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, if there's even one doubter or one kid in the car being like, I don't want to do this. And then they get to the game and they're like, nobody's on the field. It's empty. What is everybody talking about?
Nobody's playing.
They never really explain like, how do you believe enough in baseball to see the baseball game? You know what I mean? So there's some nitpicks for me, but again, it was like overall, it was a good nostalgic movie. Not my favorite overall, but it was worth a watch, I think.
So I think we get to ratings. I think you've just said good nostalgic movie, but not overall your favorite. So I do want to hear your rating on this film.
Okay. I will rate it first.
So hit me with it.
I'm dancing around it. I want to give this a 6.8.
Okay. And what I will say up front is our scores are definitely skewed. Like my score will skew his score and vice versa. So I think it will even out nicely. For me, let me say two things. One, big nostalgia merchant. Like if you could hit me in the nostalgia,
perfect 10.
Yeah, no. Not listen. elephant in the room. Justin's not with us anymore.
Right.
He's not dead. He just doesn't want to come to these anymore. He's got life. But I'm not a perfect 10 guy either. I'm one of those weird, bottom line, you'll never see a perfect 10 from me ever. But I will say, one, I'm a nostalgia merchant. If you hit me in the nostalgia, it's going to be such a higher rating than it probably should have been. Mm-hmm. The second thing is what we didn't talk about in the plot is the moment that the movie led up to, which is Kevin Costner. Is Kevin Costner? Mm-hmm. Mine went blank. Kevin Costner getting to throw the ball with his dad and talk to him, reconnect, rekindle a relationship that was broken, left on a bad note. I'm a big what if guy. I'm a big what could have been guy. Sure. I just live in it. So that for me was a really good plot ending.
Okay.
I think if you could have ended there without even the cars driving down the road, it would have been better for it.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately the story told was excellent. So what I will give this is a 9.6, which I think is my highest rating for any movie we've done.
It is
by a long margin. I think my highest before that was like an 8 point something, right?
No, you actually gave Memento, the 2000 movie.
Oh, Memento. Yep.
A 9.4.
Yeah, 9.4. Yeah.
But 9.6 is by far your highest.
This film did something for me, and I appreciated that because I didn't really know what I was going to expect.
That is impressive.
So, yeah. But again, nostalgia, and I don't know if the movie's on the list. So if it is, I'm sorry, I'm not going to ruin it. But like Super 8 did the same thing for me. If you've ever seen Super 8,
I love Super 8.
I didn't live in that time frame, but again, we talked about, it's close enough that movie it's so much higher of a rating than it probably could have been for me because of the way it is created and painted. So, so 9.6 for me. And you said what, 6.8?
6.8. So overall, that is an 8.2. So like you said, it averages out.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty fair score. I think it probably would be closer to like, for most people, like a 7.5, 7.7 around that range, probably.
I think it might even be a little bit higher. I think I'm a little bit critical on it because it just wasn't my favorite watch overall. But like, I think a lot of the people who get more of the baseball references, or, you bring up a great point where I kind of glossed over the fact that, he's talking his whole, the whole movie, he's talking about how he denied a catch with his dad. And
yeah,
I kind of knew that like his dad would be involved in the ending, but that was such a heartfelt, like such a good feel good moment. And that was the ending that the movie needed more than the cars, more than the,
if we could have just skipped over, because I think ultimately the whole concept of, for me personally, losing the farm in Kevin Costner's mind was worth it. If he got to reconnect with his dad and make an amends and get to throw that. Like, I think for me in my mind, if you just go, listen, him losing the farm was worth it for this single moment.
Well,
I think for a lot of people that connects with them.
Losing the farm was worth it just to meet Shoeless Joe, which was his newfound hero, which he hated until his dad passed away. So like he had already gotten what he needed. And he was pursuing it further because there was more to be gotten. Like, technically, even though there was a lot of strife and a lot of struggle, like the whole time he's doing it is because he's getting something out of it. And like
absolutely,
that's the ultimate. Like, he didn't even need that. Yeah. That's a huge, cherry on top. So I will give you that. I think my score is probably a little bit lower. I do think it's accurate to me personally.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad that it was higher for you because I think that is probably more indicative of the viewing public. So 8.2.
Okay, so that's the film. And now if you've never watched this before, you're new and you've actually made it this far, first of all, thank you. Second of all, what we do now is we have this huge list of over 1,000 movies. We hit a random number generator, which Brian will do for us, and he'll give us a number, and then we go to the corresponding movie on the list and we watch it and review it. So let's get it going.
We have 1,223 movies remaining to watch. And our lucky number this week is 673.
Dead in the middle. That's got to be like a 19... 50s, 60s era, maybe earlier, actually. 1950s, I'm going to go with.
673 is The Tin Drum.
The Tin Drum. This just doesn't sound great.
1979, The Tin Drum.
Oh, okay. 1979, The Tin Drum.
Yep.
That doesn't sound like anything I've seen nor wanted to see. I'm assuming tin drum is in TIN.
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about?
The metal tin.
The Tin Drum is let's see. The Tin Drum, of course, is controversial. What's new? If you've watched any of ours, it seems like we draw a lot of controversial films. And maybe this list has more of them than we could have imagined.
We have to clarify this from time to time, but we did not create this list. This list is based off of the 1001 movies you have to watch before you die, or you must watch before you die book that gets amended every year. They add new movies, they take some off, they put them back. And so a lot of movies have been added for differing reasons and stuff like that. And yeah, some of them are like because they push the limits of cinema or like what people thought was legal in a movie. Like, so sometimes we're going to roll a movie and we're going to just skip over it and keep moving. We'll see what this one's about.
The Tin Drum is a 1979 film adaptation of Gunter Grass's novel of the same title. It follows a boy named Oscar who willfully arrests his own physical development and remains in the body of a child. That's where I'll stop. I don't want to spoil it, but that's basically the concept. And so we will see. It is the first thing that I Googled said, why is the Tin Drum controversial? So if we come back next episode and say, listen, we decided not to watch it, just be aware of that. We've done it from time to time. We choose not to watch certain films with certain themes. We don't mind watching films with war or dark things, but when it gets into some of the more perverse things of the world, we just go no thanks and move on. So we'll let you know next episode whether the Tin Drum is a go or not, and
it looks
hopefully it is.
This might have been a movie that was made in Germany because it has an original title of Die and Blechtrommel. I'm guessing.
Yes. Great German that was.
Thank you. I am not I am German, but I do not speak it. It looks like if you have an HBO Max subscription, it's streaming for free. So it is there, and it's also on the Criterion channel. I still don't know what that is necessarily.
Yes, we've heard that time or two.
It's for rent on Amazon and Apple TV and stuff like that. So good luck finding the movie. And yeah, like Ben said, if we do some more research and find out that it's not worth watching, you may see us doing a different movie next time. But The Tin Drum from 1979 will be our next movie.
All right. Well, we will see you in the next episode. We hope you're well. We hope you watch Field of Dreams at least. Let us know what you think. If you've seen it or you haven't, go watch it. I think a lot of people probably have. And let us know in the comments how you would rate the Field of Dreams, because I think it probably will have quite a wide range of scores based on other people's feelings. So until then, we'll see you next time.